Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths.
Dr. Francesca Marini is an associate professor, programming and outreach librarian at the Texas A&M University Libraries, Cushing Memorial Library, and Archives. In her role, she makes collections and ideas available to the public through in-person and online talks, exhibitions, tours, fairs, and more. She holds a PhD in Library and Information Studies from UCLA, and her research focuses on performing arts archiving, as well as special collections and archive outreach. Dr. Marini is an active member of several professional and scholarly associations, and she is currently the president of the Theater Library Association. Dr. Marini, thank you so much for being with us. It is such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a lot of fun already, so glad to be here.
Well, great. Again, a mutual colleague introduced us in this way, so
Yes.
It's a pleasure. And I have to tell you, you're our first librarian on as a guest, so
Excellent.
Yay for us. I want to know, first of all, can you tell us about the library, the importance that it plays, the significance in the name, and just some of the activities and features that you all have there?
Absolutely. So I've been at the Cushing Memorial Library and Archives for about 8 years now. It's going to be 8 years in August. So it's been a great experience. So we're part of the university libraries. There are 5 libraries total. The main library is Evans, and we are directly connected to the Evans Library. Cushing Library was the first standalone library on campus, opened in 1930. And is named after E.B. Cushing, who was the president of A&M, saved the college from going downhill financially, so he's a very important person. So the Cushing Library has been around as a building for a long time, has had different uses over time.
Yeah.
And the current location the current location of Special Collections and Archives started in 1998 when the building was renovated. So before that, Special Collections and Archives were different locations for a while in Evans Library, for a while in Cushing. But as of 98, they did a major renovation, so the building is beautiful. And it had gone downhill a little bit in the 80s, so they really needed to refurbish, and it's absolutely gorgeous. We kept it in very good shape. So Special Collections and Archives have been there for quite a while now, and we're open to everybody. What I like about being here is that it's a public institution, so we're really here for everybody. So you don't have to be a student or faculty or be associated with A&M. Anybody can come in, look at everything we have. We have some fantastic collections. We have one of the largest collections in the world of science fiction and fantasy. We also have the papers of George R.R. Martin, so if you're a Game of Thrones fan, it's a great place to be. We have a growing LGBTQIA plus collection, and we keep expanding. We also have a research fellowship associated with it, and we have internships, and now we just got a new endowment in the recent months. So it's been very well supported. And then we focus on history of the book, history of printing, of course, Texas history, military history, and then all the university archives. And then we have women's history. So really, we have a bit of everything, but it's a great place to be for that reason, because we can really serve a variety of communities, different audiences. And again, you can come for research or you can come for fun. We have people who come and have their picture taken with replicas of Game of Thrones swords, like
That's
replicas
amazing.
of what is used in the show.
Yeah.
So it's really a fun place. And so we offer research services for anybody who needs anything from us. We have a beautiful reading room on the second floor. And then we work with instructors, so we have a lot of classes that come over, sometimes just for a tour, sometimes they do assignments based on our collections.
Yes.
We have had entire classes that were designed around the Cushing Library. And then, of course, we have all the outreach services, which is what I coordinate, so exhibitions, tours, talks online and in person. We have a blog. So really, think of us as a bit of a mix of a library and a museum, so we are really active all the time. So again, you can come for research, you can come for fun, you can come to see an exhibit, or anything.
I love it, and you've gone through so much, but I want to know, with so many exhibitions and materials and all that you have there, how do you make them a standout, especially since there are so many libraries within the system here in College Station. But how do you intentionally make yours stand out and really share what you have to share with the community, and much less with students and faculty and staff?
Yeah. So people know about us. We're known on campus, so it's word of mouth. Of course, people know about the collection. So we are a destination for science fiction and fantasy. Of course, anybody interested in Texas A&M history. History of printing, history of the book, we are known across the world. We also teach a book history workshop, which is a 1 week long every year. We also teach classes throughout the year. So people know about that. So we're already established in the different communities that relate to our collections. And then on campus, sometimes it's just people walking by and coming in. We're open Monday through Friday, sometimes over the weekend if we have an open house. We have a great marketing department in the library, so they advertise through social media and different ways. They advertise what we do. So it's a mix of marketing, word of mouth, being established in the community. We give talks, so the talks attract a wide audience. So I usually advertise our talks through international listservs. So we've had people from Australia, from Trinidad and Tobago attending our talks. So people just get to know us through all these different channels of communication. So I say we stand out because we are so inclusive in many ways.
Yes.
And we work very closely with different communities. We do a lot of work with the LGBTQIA community, both on campus and in town, and also in Houston. And again, we're known nationally and internationally thanks to the work of my colleagues and myself. So, for example, last year we did an exhibition called Coming Out Together to Share Our History. And it was a collaborative exhibition we put together. It was 9 partners total. So it was several universities, us and Rice and University of Houston in Houston. And then we had artists and community archives. So that was another way to get ourselves known through the different communities, because we work with them because we're all part of a network of LGBTQIA archives. But then they have their constituencies and their audiences and their communities. So again, is I would say mostly word of mouth and marketing and networking.
Yes. Yeah, that's wonderful.
And then of course a website and all the usual stuff. And we get on local calendars, like I usually get on the Arts Council calendar.
Yes.
We've been on the radio podcasts like yours.
Nice.
So it's just people are very supportive. So we get the word around.
That's wonderful. And I'm thinking, because we have so many K-12 partners, is there many opportunities for K-12 schools and school districts to engage with you all as well with your exhibitions and activities?
So we love working with K-12, but sometimes it's a little hard to get on. They have curricula, so you have to really be relevant to their curriculum, and also getting tours organized, getting people out of the school physically here is not always easier. So we follow all their rules, but we're really open to working with them. And there is a great office on campus that works with K-12. So we work with them in the past. Like in 2016, we had a traveling exhibition of Shakespeare's first folio that came from the Folger Library.
Yes.
And we augmented it with our own materials. So there was a lot of K-12 programming around that. And so we're open to schools coming to us for anything from a tour to an exhibition to a class. We have had some elementary schools coming over. I have a colleague who works in the main learning and outreach unit in Evans Library. She brought over an elementary school after hours journalism club. So they had to come and interview us, and it was really fun. We have had STEM camps. They were here last summer and at different times, so they came over for tours. So we've had different interactions, and we would love to do more. So, and again, there's a bit of something for everybody, so I think it really lends itself to K-12.
Well, that's what makes your position and the library just so remarkable, because you all are doing so many varied things, and you're attracting many different audiences. And I know that we have so many, again, our K-12 partners, and they all want to come up and visit the university. And it's good to be able to connect with you all directly so that we can directly connect them to you all when they're visiting. So that's lovely. It's good to know that you have those programs for them as well.
Yes.
But just a more simplistic question for the audience, more basic. I want to know, as a librarian, from your perspective, what is the importance of books, knowledge, research? Why are these things important?
So yeah, we have books, we have documents, we have photos, we have videos. So it's a very wide variety of formats. Of course, we archive everything that is digital these days. So it's a lot of information. It's important to have it because you have to preserve history and different points of view. So we really make an effort to show different voices in our collections. So it's not just like one type of history, it's history from different communities, different points of views. So let's say for the LGBTQIA, we have materials that people collect in themselves, and then we have official records of the university, so you can compare. So it's important to have the books first because you want to know what came before you, and that helps you understand what is going on now. And we are also documenting the now. We're documenting what is happening every day. So without that, you cannot make any informed decisions in your life. If you don't know what is happening, what has happened, what might happen, you are gonna live a very limited life. So you really need to know as much as you can and educate yourself, and it never ends. So we're there for everybody who wants to know more. And some people have, like I grew up with a lot of books at home and access to libraries. Some people don't have that. Now it might be easier with the internet, but some people don't have an internet connection at home. So they need a place like ours. And you can come and get resources that you cannot get elsewhere, but you can also come and find a community. We really pride ourselves on being a very welcoming place. So let's say if you're part of the African American community and you know we're preserving the history, we've been doing work with former students and people that they call the pioneers, people who were like the first African American students here, which was really hard in the 60s. That A&M didn't officially admit people until 1963. It's important for them to know that we're preserving their voices, and there is a place for their history, and we really want to highlight it. So it's not just about the piece of paper or the book, it's about the knowledge, the people. We also do oral histories and interviews. So it's really, to me, it's about creating a community, and a community of educated people that acknowledge the different points of views and the importance of everybody in different ways. What we are not doing is the traditional archiving where it's just certain points of views and certain histories. That's what we don't want to do. We want to really present as many people and as many facts as possible.
Okay, so I'm glad you went there. So let me ask you, so from the time, this current time now, and maybe perhaps when you were a child yourself, have libraries changed much?
Enormously. Enormously.
Tell me about those changes, and tell me about how you all are intentionally trying to continue to evolve.
Yeah. So first there is all the technological evolution, of course, that I don't even have to discuss, but now we have so many electronic resources, there are databases, there are websites, there are what we call LibGuides that are like online resources about a certain topic. Most of the knowledge these days is knowledge is becoming more and more digital, so we're archiving that, so we're archiving websites and all kind of digital resources. So there is all that growth that is quite evident. Also, libraries have grown more and more to be a space for people to come over.
Yes.
Like you think everybody does stuff on their computer, on their phone. First, you have to have a phone or a computer. Second, you have to have a good internet connection. And then you have to have a place to do that. So we have a lot of students who are like in crammed dormitories, and they come to us because they have a quiet place and they can spread their things out because maybe they have a small room. There are people, not specifically in our libraries, but if you think about public libraries, people who don't have internet, don't have computers, homeless people who use the library.
Yes.
So both in academia and in public libraries in general, public libraries have always been stronger, of course, in terms of helping communities, but the libraries have become more and more of a place to go just for you to get your life done, to get things done for your life. So it's about knowledge, but it's also about having a place and a community. And then as more and more there is an emphasis on diversity and inclusivity and showing, as I was saying, the different points of views. So yeah, libraries have evolved greatly and they keep evolving with the world. And they've been leaders in many ways. Like in terms of diversity and inclusivity, especially public libraries and academic libraries have been very strong about advocating for people and working with communities that were marginalized or silenced. So like there's a lot of work we do with the transgender community and the Latinx community and, as I said, African Americans. So really showing the world for what it is the world is not what one person decides it is everybody. And we have to live together and respect each other and give a voice to each other. And there is so much bullying still going on, so much violence, and libraries are more and more advocates helping everybody.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that as a lifelong educator and someone that's always had a true love for libraries, I think it's so important that the general public, for people that maybe are not as connected to libraries as others, that they do know that it really serves as a lifeline for some people. You mentioned people that don't have access to internet or, technology, a home computer, or even just that safe, quiet space to do the work they need or the homework or just peace and quiet to get away to get things done. And I so appreciate libraries, large and small, from those rural community libraries to these huge, amazing university libraries. Your work is so important. So it's so appreciated. So you being on the podcast today means so much to us.
And I hope you'll have more librarians and archivists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you mentioned rural libraries, and they're like book mobiles. They've been going on forever, but really, a lot of people are really hungry for knowledge, and just getting a book or getting a tablet or a computer in their hands just to know more is just essential. And some people just want to know more. Some people want to know about their situation, like they're trying to make sense out of their own lives, and they need the information. So libraries help you with that. Also because we're there to guide you through understanding, like especially these days where there is information everywhere. How do you decipher it? Some is really bad, some is really good, some is harder to get to. So we, as librarians and archivists, we guide you finding the resources. So, and you get expert knowledge that you will eventually acquire on your own, but maybe not, but you need to get started. So we are also kind of guides through life.
And I think for our audience, anybody listening, I would encourage everyone, if you haven't been to a library within, even if it's within the last year, to visit a library, just go visit, just see how they've changed over the years, the decades, and watch the librarians and see what they do, because the last time I was in a library, those librarians were everywhere. They were helping in so many different ways, helping people at their workspace, helping from I witnessed a librarian helping someone maneuver and try to figure out how to pay their utilities online to, trying to find research. So it was a beautiful, very inclusive, safe place to be. So it's very important, and I do encourage people to visit libraries as much as possible.
And even when things are online, it takes a lot of time. Like all these databases that we have available, or electronic journals and newspapers and everything, you have to pay for them, which is not always cheap. It's actually not cheap at all. And then you need to select the resources, make them available. There's a lot of technology involved. So even when you just click on your computer and get something from the library, there's a team of people behind it. So it doesn't happen on its own. It just
magically appears. But going back, you mentioned when you were young, you had books. So did you always have a love for books?
Yeah. I mean,
so tell me about that.
I just had books everywhere, and I was allowed to pick any book I wanted. So I was reading Shakespeare in translation when I was 10. I was reading Virginia Woolf when I was in my teens. I was reading Russian novels. I was reading Italian novels. I was reading children's books, but also really complicated philosophical books. And you understand them at your level. So, of course, when I reread them now, I see more of the sad side, maybe. Let's say if I read Virginia Woolf now, I understand what she was really talking about. At the time, maybe it was more about the style and the experiences described. So it's also important to like reread books over time, of course.
So true.
But it was just very important for me to have the books there and have pretty much we had any topic from philosophy to history to novels to current politics. So it was pretty much a library, and I loved having the freedom to read what I wanted without being censored or filtered by my parents. Of course, they would give some advice.
Sure.
So like with some heavy war novels, they were saying, maybe wait until you're a little older. Like All Quiet on the Western Front. I haven't read it yet. But so there was guidance, of course, to avoid like traumatic experiences. But there was also like the freedom to just like pick something and read what you want. So that was really formative for me because it opened up a lot of different horizons. And I was in my town in Bologna until my late 20s, until I met my husband. But then I moved suddenly from like Bologna to Los Angeles, big jump.
Big jump.
Of course, my husband was there to support me, and he's a film producer, so it was a very interesting world there. But also, having read all those books, I kind of had in the back of my mind, yes, you can have all these experiences and do different things. So it kind of prepared me for freedom, I would say.
Yeah.
And also freedom of thinking. And
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. When you made that comment about rereading, how important it is to go back and reread something, you know, there's that old saying that, you know, the way we see things, it's not so much as they are, but as we are. And when we do go back and revisit something, and especially if we've changed, we've had growth within ourselves or different experiences, we do see things differently.
Yeah.
So I think it is lovely to go back to visit a book, kind of like an old friend, to go back, and if you still feel about it the same way you did, or maybe you have a greater appreciation, or you can kind of laugh and think, wow, my thoughts have really changed on what I used to think about that book.
Yeah. Same with movies. I mean,
Yes.
same thing. Yeah.
It's so true, so true. But you mentioned moving to the U.S., to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So how was that for you?
It was great. I mean, I grew up in Bologna, which is a university town, so it's very, very active. It's in the north of Italy, but closer to the center.
I visited once before at the University of
Great.
Bologna. It was
Oh my
beautiful,
God. Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gorgeous there, and a lot of international students. So I had friends from all over, from Tunisia to the US,
Yes.
to Russia, to Germany. So again, being exposed to a lot of different people from different places. So that was great. And then I met my husband in Venice. I was there working on my undergraduate dissertation, and he was there for the film festival. And we met at an exhibition, which makes sense. It's just part of my love for exhibitions.
Yes.
And then we just fell in love and corresponded with letters, phone calls, emails. And then I moved to Los Angeles. And it was really a great experience because my husband is the most supportive person ever. So it was very helpful guiding me around. It was rough with the language because I studied English in middle and high school. Of course, we were studying British English, so a lot of words that you
It's
just
quite
don't
different.
use here. Yeah.
Yes.
And a different rhythm and everything. And I could read it and kind of understand it, but I never spoke English. So when I got like plopped into Los Angeles, it wasn't the easiest. Like I would go to a grocery store and like could not understand the cashier. They were like paper or plastic. I was like, then they would finally point, and I was like, okay, you're asking me about the type of bag. It's okay, I get it now. So it took a while just to understand, because at first I was just understanding my husband pretty much.
Yes.
And I'd done all the tests of admissions to UCLA. I went there with a full scholarship, so I did great with all the written part, but it was just like learning to speak and understand. And then, so it took maybe a month or two, and then suddenly it clicked and I understood everything. And I could express myself too, which was great.
Even better.
The downside in LA is that we were listening to the news on TV, and at first I could not understand a lot of it. And then I understood, and it was like a streak of murders and horrible things happening. So at that point, it was like, oh, maybe it was better when I couldn't understand. So the language is definitely a barrier, but we got over it. My English is far from perfect, but I get by. And the culture was interesting because Los Angeles is a very welcoming city, very diverse. So again, I never had trouble. Like they never made me feel bad. It was really nice. And the school, of course, UCLA is a top school. I had great classmates and great professors. So it was all good.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Then we went to Canada, so there was that adjustment. We were there for 9 years. I was in Vancouver, and then we were in Stratford near Toronto. So Canadian culture, a little different, but again, very welcoming overall. So far, I mean, a lot of adjustments, but I feel like very lucky with everything I lived through.
Well, it's every opportunity, every move is something you're learning. You're constantly learning. You're constantly learning new perspectives, and you're getting to meet lots of new people, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how did you make your way to Texas A&M?
Hey, it was serendipity. I mean, we had been in Canada a long time. My husband kind of wanted to come back here, and I was ready to. And I mean, we had a great experience there. But again, been away for a while, so we wanted to come back. And there was just a great job open at Cushing Library, and I applied, and I was selected. So it was serendipity. Oh, and I had not been to Texas before, so that was another adjustment.
That's another cultural adjustment. And what have been some of those greatest adjustments, you think?
Here, I would say I've always been in very liberal environments, so this is a little more conservative, so there was that. And I mean, I've always had conservative friends too. It's not that I was only among liberals, but there was definitely, here is a little more dominant, so there was some of that. I did hear some racist statements here that I had not heard before, I have to say, from a very small group of people.
Oh, no.
But there was a bit of a shock. But again, it's somewhat part of the culture, and for some people here, that's what we're kind of trying to move away from. But in a way, some of the things I heard here that were disturbing helped me understand the struggles that people go through, because I personally have been lucky, have not been through many struggles, apart from the occasional Italian joke, which you get over. Right. You get over it after a while. But I kind of saw here a bit of the climate for like African Americans, Latinx, LGBTQIA communities, and the stories also, some of the stories even for A&M. I mean, there are people who were here in the early days that do not have good experiences. They're still connected to A&M, they still work with A&M, but they are very open about what happened over time. So I got to know a lot of people and kind of witness some of the struggles firsthand, so I think it really helped me understand what people go through. Things that I knew in theory, I talked with people, but I kind of saw them much closer. So I think that helped me being more supportive of people and being a little more, I was always understanding, but really understand for real, like what they've been going through. So.
You know, it's always tragic and so upsetting and disappointing, and all the things when we hear those kinds of comments and those hurtful things, but it reinforces the thought that we have so much more work to do. You know, sometimes we get excited about some of the movements that have happened or the changes that have occurred, which have been, we can't diminish the wonderful changes that have occurred and all the progress that has been made, but there's always still work to be done, more progress to be made, and it's wonderful to know that we have people in positions that can provide services and programming that are very attuned to those sensitivities.
Yeah, and to me is always, as much as you can, keep the communication open. So there are people that you cannot reason with. People who, like, we are at two absolute and opposite ends, and there's no communication. I try even then, but sometimes you just cannot communicate. But in most cases, you can communicate. You can try to educate people. They can educate you on different experiences and points of views. So I always take the chance politely to point out different points of views. And like, I understand where you're coming from, but think about this and think about that. I try every time to talk with people, and people have done it with me too. I mean, we come from different cultures, so I need to be educated too.
Well, and I think we all do, and it's continuing education, right? It's that lifelong learning, not just in the formal sense of books and libraries and classes and research, but just on engaging with other individuals and hearing their perspective. So not that you're totally in agreement, but at least you can have more empathy, perhaps, for why they sit in that chair that they sit, or why they feel the way they do about, again, something you may not agree with, but at least you have a greater understanding of from where they come.
So I think if we keep working together, there will keep being progress. And yeah, we move forward, and then there are steps backwards.
Yeah, what's the old saying? Two steps forward, one step back. Yes.
It's a struggle, but it's just good to know I have so many colleagues who were so active in diversity and inclusion, and they really helped me growing in that area. So I'm just grateful for all the people who are trying to do, who are doing their best to make the world a little better.
And that's all we can ask for, right? Is just do your best. So when I look at your resume, and very impressive, very lengthy resume and CV, you are so impressive. You're so accomplished. You have a strong background in like the performing arts. You have strong interest. So I want you to talk about that. But is there an intersection between books and performance?
Yeah. I mean, there's an intersection between performance and everything.
Exactly. But what is it?
Well, a lot of
for
books, for me personally, is just the different ideas that you can present. They can be in a book, they can be in a film, they can be in a performance. And there are stories that have been adapted from books to theater and vice versa. So yeah, there's a lot of connection in terms of the drama part, like the written part. But in general, to me, everything is performance. Like I come more for the traditional theater history, but there is an entire field called performance studies where they look at everything as performance. Like the two of us talking right now is performance, a politician talking is performance, circus is performance, of course. So it's just looking at life as performance. So for me, the books I was reading were also drama, were also theater, drama. So that kind of got me into that direction. And also my family loved the theater, so we would go to the theater all the time and movies. So there is a connection. My personal connection is pretty traditional, like going to the theater or reading drama. But in general, I just see books as stories and points of views, and that's what you see in theater.
So what are some of your favorite performances or books? Are there any projects that you've encountered, creations that have been so profound and have touched you in a way that moved you? That's a standout.
There's a lot. It would be a very long list. I remember when I was doing theater studies in Italy, my department invited the Living Theater, and it was Judith Malina and her partner, and the company at the time was in the 90s, so it wasn't the original company, of course. But it was really, they brought back some of their classics, and they did some performances in an actual theater, like traditional theater, some in the piazza, the main piazza we have. So a lot of interactive stuff. So that stuck with me because it was a lot of it wasn't experimentation anymore at the time because they were bringing back stuff that they had done decades before. But it was just seeing the energy and how they were connecting with the audiences, how they were communicating a pretty strong message of anti-violence and inclusivity again. So that's something that really stuck with me. And then, of course, I have my favorite Italian actors and performers, and I've been moved many times by performances, and I like a lot of solo performances. So yeah, it is a long list. What I love about theater is how performers can connect with the audience, and how sometimes you are part of the performance depending on what kind of show you are.
It's very interactive.
Exactly. And again, is making you think about life and values and yourself and the world in general. So pretty much what I was discussing before. I like everything that kind of opens up new horizons.
That's beautiful. As we begin to start closing our conversation, I want to ask you, is there anything that you want to share that you thought we'd cover, that you wanted to share, and maybe something you've prepared for to speak on today?
No, I think you covered a lot of the topics I wanted to talk about, so I really thank you for that. So yeah, I just want to invite everybody. It's a difficult world, so just really being open to each other, understanding, and don't shut people out, don't judge people, don't think you're right. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. It's just we need more really peace and understanding. I know it's a stereotype, but it's a pretty rough world these days, and you see a lot of violence, a lot of hatred, a lot of people were made feel very small, and they should feel big, and they should feel like everybody else. You see a lot of hurt in the world, so I just want to be stereotypical, but tell people just be open and don't shut people out, because I see so much damage.
Francesca, when you speak, I can feel your passion for humanity, and it's really quite touching. Mm-hmm. Were you always very sensitive to those around you? You must have.
I'm a sensitive person. I'm a bit of a stereotypical sensitive person. But I was really raised in a family where we always looked at the different points of views, and we had strong values. We knew who we were, but we were always open to everybody. And we had friends and family across the spectrum. And like my parents at some point became friends with a gentleman who was homeless at the time, and they helped, and he was from a different country, so they helped him get his visa in Italy. He lived with them for a while because they just became friends. And we were never told, like, oh, somebody's homeless, it's their fault because they should go and find a job. We were never told that. So it just like, we were raised like people are people have their histories and their stories, and you just have to connect as much as you can. So I think I was raised that way, so it kind of came natural. And I say with all the different countries I lived in and the different people I met, they really opened my mind to so many different experiences. So I think it helped me becoming more and more empathetic with people. And I got a lot of help from a lot of people, so I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, I try. I have a long way to go, but I think if we all try even a little bit, it would be a better world. It would move faster to become a better world.
Well, your sensitivity to that humanity is really quite beautiful, and I feel it as we're just having this conversation. So it's a beautiful thing to witness and be in the presence of. So thank you for sharing. As we begin to close, I want to ask you, so as far as recommendations, a few recommendations. Mm-hmm. So maybe perhaps a recommendation to parents and or young people that are struggling in one way or another, be it with knowledge or a cultural aspect within their families. What would you recommend? What advice do you have to give those that are struggling or trying to find a home base of understanding and acceptance?
Believe in yourself, which again is not the easiest, but don't think you're small, don't think you're insignificant, or don't think you're wrong. Like at Dragiland, they were saying there's nothing wrong with us. And we just want to keep saying it because so many young kids are made to believe that they're wrong and they should be changed and they should be a different way. And this applies to everything. I mean, to just being a human being. Some families want you to be in a certain way, and maybe you're different. Like you don't want to be a lawyer, you want to be a librarian.
Yes.
So it could apply to a bit of everything. So yeah, unfortunately I don't have any advice that can help everybody, but just like believe in yourself. Don't think you're small or you're inadequate, and just find resources and people. And if you're lucky, you'll find them. Not everybody's lucky, and it's not always easy to say that. But believe that there is a better world, and that you're not alone. So.
That is definitely true, and as painful as that is to hear as we talk about the realities of it, it's your advice, your suggestions, although you feel that it wasn't a lot, it is a lot because you do sit in a position with lots of perspective. You're a person that intentionally looks for continued perspective, so that is so valued. And I think, too, that the more we speak about it, the better it is. And maybe by speaking about it as we are, maybe we can encourage people to just keep searching for their family. You know, if it's not, again, their biological family, but a group of people or an individual or two that they feel safe and loved with. Yeah. So it seems as though that's what your life's work has really been about. It's been such a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you so much.
I hope that maybe we'll be able to have another follow-up chat, especially if you have any special events or exhibits you really want to feature, because we'll be sending students and educators your way, no doubt. But to our audience, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've had an opportunity to listen to this entire conversation and all of our other conversations. And like Dr. Marini, go through the world seeking to understand with peace and love. Have a wonderful day.